Hey guys, Christoph the Polish guy here, and I'm going to talk about why I love Jojo's Bizarre Adventure so much. You probably already know I'm a huge Jojo's Bizarre Adventure fan. I recently even made a video of how Stone Ocean is setting up to be one of the best Jojo parts. In general, I'll be making this mini-series of videos called You Should Be Watching, where I'll discuss something I truly love and truly feel passionate about and why I think you should be watching it. And this is my very first video in that series, and it's called, as you see, You Should Be Watching, and why I believe Jojo's Bizarre Adventure is the single greatest anime ever made. I truly love that anime, it means a lot to me. So, welcome to the first video of the You Should Be Watching series. Jojo's Bizarre Adventure is this generational story about the Joestar family and their adventures. And there are many different parts of that story, and each part tells a story of a different member of the family. It starts in Victorian London with Jonathan Joestar, then it goes to World War II with his grandson Joseph Joestar, later in the 80s Japan with Joseph's grandson Jotaro. Every story is told with bizarre style that simply works. The characters are generally very masculine men who dress stylishly and make very stylish poses while fighting, and that's all amazing. Part 3 is the most famous part and the part that introduces the signature superpower of the characters. That power is called the stands. Stands are basically superpowers that give every character a unique ability, and wow, there's so many different abilities, different character poses. In later parts, stands become much more over the top, and it still just works. Every story in Jojo's Bizarre Adventure experiments with a different genre. Part 1 takes place in Victorian England and is about Jonathan Joestar, and it is basically a Castlevania-style horror story with vampires. It starts with how his cousin Dio Brando moves into his mansion and turns to a vampire, after which they become arch-nemesis of each other. Part 2 is basically an Indiana Jones-style adventure story with superhero elements. It's about Jonathan's grandson, Joseph Joestar, and how the Germans accidentally awakened the ancient beings that created the stone masks. Those ancient beings are known as the Pillar Men. And they are so much more powerful than regular humans. So yeah, part 2 is very much an Indiana Jones with superhero elements. Part 3 is the hardest one to define. It's about Jotaro Kujo, Joseph's grandson, and company traveling to Egypt to defeat Dio Brando once and for all. And most of the episodes is just Jotaro and friends fighting Dio's minions. Part 3 is also likely the most famous part, and also the part that introduced the iconic stands into Jojo's Bizarre Adventure. I guess I will define it as basically Tekken meets Indiana Jones. Yeah, that's the best way to define part 3. It's an ultra action-packed action-adventure story. Part 4 is a very different story. It takes place in a small town of Morio, a small town in Japan, and it starts with what it would be like if regular people had stands. And it's about their regular lives while also using stands. Later though, the story evolves into a mystery thriller with a serial killer being a main villain. And a very amazing villain at that, but more on that later. And obviously, he's also a stand user. Part 5 is about Giorno Giovanna, and it is a gangster story. The story though is standalone, and other than few characters from previous parts making cameos, the part isn't really related much to previous stories. It takes place in Italy, and Giorno joins the mafia, and his goal is to climb on top and overthrow the mysterious boss. It's very much a Goodfellas-style gangster story. And part 6, which is now going, is a prison story, and it stars Jotaro Kujo's daughter Jolene. She's the first female protagonist in Jojo, and she's one of my favorites too. She's really amazing. She has been framed for a crime she didn't commit and ends up in a green dolphin prison. However, later it turns out there is a lot more to it than just meets the eye. She isn't there by accident. It turns out that she has been framed for this crime because it's part of much larger conspiracy that connects very much to all the previous parts. And Stone Ocean, that's what the part is called, is really amazing. Like, I already reviewed it before, and as I said, I think it's one of the best parts in Jojo. This makes the Jojo series all the better. I heard part 7 is a fan favorite and I really wish it gets adapted someday. From what I'm hearing about it, it sounds like the best part in the entire series. I believe it's called Steel Ball Run and it takes place in the Wild West, which makes me even more excited and wishing it gets adapted someday. Also, it's awesome how the story travels around the world. Not only it takes place in different time periods, it also takes us to many different places too, as I already said a couple of times. Part 1, the name of it is Phantom Blood, takes place in Victorian England, while Part 2, Battle Tendency, takes place during World War II and takes us to New York, Rome and Switzerland. And Part 3 goes to Japan, and it then takes us across Asia and the Middle East. That part is called Stardust Crusaders. And part 4 is unique in that it takes place in a very small Japanese town. That's what differentiates it from all the previous parts. It's confined to this small setting. And part 5, Golden Wind, takes place all over Italy, including Venice, Rome, Calabria Islands, and many other places. I've actually been to many of those places too. I've traveled to many places in Italy. And current part takes place in Florida. What makes JoJo's Bizarre Adventure my favorite anime, besides the great stories, is the diverse cast of fantastic and likable characters. The characters are generally some of my favorite characters in fiction. Every JoJo is amazing in his or her own way. They all have very different personalities, which greatly sets them apart from each other. Jonathan is a classic English gentleman. Joseph is much more aggressive and impulsive, while Jotaro I used to dislike, but he really grew on me. And his daughter Jolene is awesome. She's kind-hearted and caring, while also badass and tough. And she cares about her friends a lot, like she developed an older sister-little brother dynamic with Emporio. Josuke Higashita is also pretty cool and pretty funny too. Compared to other JoJos, he's very grounded. He and Jolene are likely the most realistic JoJos, seeing as how they lead regular lives before getting involved in the whole story of the Joestar family. Supporting characters are also incredible, with Jean-Pierre Polnareff likely being my favorite supporting character in the series. In some ways, I kind of relate to Polnareff. He kind of reminds me of myself personality-wise. He's also really funny too, and he's impatient, impulsive, and makes impulsive decisions without thinking. And he makes mistakes, but he later learns from them. He's likely one of the most human and relatable characters in the entire series. Another supporting character I very much love is Noriaki Kakyoin. He has a strong sense of justice and some of the most amazing quotes in the entire show. And I love all his interactions with Polnareff. Like, interactions between him and Polnareff are some of the best in the series. They are close friends, but they are very opposite of each other. Polnareff is funny and childish, while Kakyoin is serious and matured, and their dynamic is one of my favorite in the whole anime. And Lisa from Battle Tendency is an amazing mentor. She looks like a very young woman, but she's much older than that, and we do learn a lot more about her later in the story. Golden Wind likely has the least interesting cast of characters. Characters of Golden Wind are still great, and I love how they get backstory for each one of them, which greatly fleshes them out. But looking at the cast of JoJo characters, Golden Wind has the cast that is my least favorite. That said, even least favorite characters in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure are still great characters. And the villains are wicked awesome. There is our Joestar family arch-nemesis Dio Brando. he is a human turned vampire and his design is awesome, as are his quotes and all the scenes he's in. He's a badass and he's very charismatic, and he also has the most powerful stand in the entire series. I won't tell his stand though, it's supposed to be a reveal. My favorite villains, however, are a serial killer Yoshikage Kira and the priest Enrico Pucci. I love these guys because they're so unique and cool. Kira is a serial killer who just wants to live a quiet life. He's very different from the villains that we previously saw. He's almost like the exact opposite of Dio, who wants to conquer the world. Well, as I said, Kira just wants to live a quiet life. And he happens to have a fetish for female hands, which is why he kills women. And other than having a stand, like most of the other characters in the story, he's a complete normal human. He's likely the most realistic villain in the whole anime, and each time he's on screen, there was a sense of tension and terror. Plus, he's always so calm and acts totally like a normal person, which he is. Yeah, Yoshikage Kira is an amazing villain. My favorite villain actually, however, is Enrico Pucci, who is a priest. He's a priest who actually believes he's doing God's work. He's quite complex, and he truly and genuinely believes he's doing the right thing. As a priest, he's obviously very religious, and he wants people to know their destiny, which he believes is going to heaven. And every time he harms someone, he asks for God's forgiveness, because he truly believes he's doing it for greater good. And I do know that we will learn his entire backstory from the manga, but those episodes haven't been released yet, but I'm really looking forward to those. I will also mention the Pillar Men. I wouldn't say they're as amazing as the villains already talked about, but they're still very amazing, and they likely have the biggest and most dangerous goal of all the villains. They want to destroy the world. They're ancient beings who created the masks that turned Dio into a vampire in the first place. I love their design, they very much resemble the Aztecs. Also, it's amazing how their personalities differ. Wamu is an honorable warrior, while Cars and AC/DC are psychopaths who enjoy being evil. There are also many incredible minor villains as well in Jojo. For example, Chosolata from Golden Wind. He's basically the Joker in both looks and personality. The Joker is one of my favorite villains ever, by the way. Chosolata might also be one of the most evil Jojo villains, seeing how he enjoys when people suffer. And you have a board game master who steals people's souls, Daniel Darby. Jojo in general has an amazing collection of villains. In other words, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is the single greatest anime I ever seen. It has everything I love in it. Great characters, fantastic stories, great villains, and amazing animation. Like, everything about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is just amazing. If you're into anime, or you consider getting into it, please do yourself a favor and watch JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. And as I said, I'll be making a lot more of those you should be watching videos, where I'll be talking about stuff I love and feel very passionate about. So, please subscribe to this channel, press the like button, and I'll talk to you soon in another video. Talk to you later, bye!